In a road accident involving two vehicles, do we automatically blame the larger vehicle even when its driver has followed the traffic rules? Or do we pronounce the judgment based on more relevant information, such as who jumped the traffic light, who was overspeeding, or who did not have a driving license? Majoritarianism is akin to blaming the bigger vehicle all the time. The believers in majoritarianism think that the majority, being the majority, always oppresses those who are in a minority. Who believes in majoritarianism? Media persons, politicians, judges, academics, stand-up comics, well, almost anyone with some influence on public discourse and policy. Almost a decade ago, a Muslim named Akhlaq was killed in Dadri, Uttar Pradesh by a Hindu mob for stealing and slaughtering a calf. Akhlaq was alleged to be a repeat offender. It was arguably a hate crime on a person from a minority community by members of the majority community. Around the same time, Prashant Pujari, a young man from Karnataka, was hacked to death by 6 assailants for his activism against illegal cow slaughter. This too was a hate crime, but by members of a minority community on a person from the majority community. If you believe in the objective truth, you may say that both deserve to be treated equally. But majoritarianism as a formative element of one's worldview would dictate that Akhlaq's death was more condemnable than Prashant's. True to that hunch, the global news stream surveys that archives major media stories globally has 1915 results on Akhlaq and only 141 results for Pujari. In other words, Prashant's hacking received not even 1/10 the attention of Akhlaq's murder. The bias reflects qualitatively as well. For Akhlaq's murder, many reports drew parallels between the present-day India and Nazi Germany, while for Prashant, it was just a law and order issue in which the victim was often indirectly blamed for inviting trouble by being an anti-cow slaughter activist. That's the theory of majoritarianism for you. Hundreds of Kashmiri Pandits were killed and hundreds of thousands of them driven out of the valley in 1990 simply for being Hindus. Azadi ka matlab kya? La ilaha illallah was one of the most popular slogans of the terrorist movement in Kashmir. It was a historically significant event in terms of scale. It was the largest displacement of people in post-partition India. The global media did a grand total of 1,802 reports on this human tragedy. To put this number in perspective, in the post-Godhra violence of 2002, 790 Muslims and 254 Hindus, official figures, died after a Muslim mob set fire to a train compartment filled with Hindu pilgrims, killing 59 of them. Muslims have continued to live in Gujarat like before. The global media has 29,092 reports, 16 times as many as the corresponding figure for the Kashmiri Pandits. What explains such a massive imbalance? The institutionalized belief in the theory of majoritarianism, according to which, as I noted earlier, the majority always oppresses a minority, no matter what. As a result, when the majority is the victim, as in the case of Kashmiri Pandits, the reality cannot be explained by the theory, so it is denied. Not to mention that the tags of majority and minority apply differently at varying scales. Hindus are a majority in India and a minority in Kashmir. One could still understand this bias if the Indian constitution awarded more power to the Hindus, but it is simply the other way around. Articles 26 to 30 of the Indian constitution disincentivize the Hindus from investing in education and institutions, while openly favoring the minorities. So much so that the Hindu institutions like the Ramakrishna Mission and sects like Lingayat have found it convenient to declare themselves non-Hindu. and thus gain more autonomy. No Western country, the UK, France, Germany, Belgium, the US, has such discriminatory laws against their majority population. The secular politics too is biased against the Hindus. The communal violence bill had been a part of the agenda of the government of India led by the UPA, which presupposes guilt on the part of the Hindu majority for any inter-religious violence. Similarly, students from the minority religions are given special scholarships, unlike the Hindus, and Hindu temples are controlled by the government, while churches and mosques are largely autonomous. The idea of majoritarianism would be valid if all communities were equally tolerant. However, some cultures are more intolerant than others. The adherents of an intolerant culture believe that it is their moral duty to be intolerant of any differences because they see their values as universal and absolute. This leads inevitably to Karl Popper's tolerance paradox. Unlimited tolerance for intolerance leads to the disappearance of tolerance in society. To intolerance in society comes from what I call the linear theory of social evolution, LTSE, characterized by 1. A monolithic linear plan of progress for the entire humanity, and 2. Otherization of cultures and communities that reject the plan. My book categorizes communism, political Islam, political Christianity, racism, Nazism, liberalism as LTSEs, while Indic traditions as non-LTSEs. This grouping of communism, Nazism and liberalism along with religious dogmas is consistent with the works of other scholars such as Yuval Noah Harari. Similarly, Yoram Hazony, a conservative Jewish thinker, has clubbed these ideologies as imperialisms of various kinds in his work, The Virtue of Nationalism. Two competing hypotheses now exist. The usual majoritarian hypothesis posits that the majority is always the aggressor, while my book's LTSE hypothesis posits that a community believing in LTSE is the aggressor. In my book, I have demonstrated that the LTSE hypothesis has far more explanatory power and relevance than the majoritarian hypothesis. The LTSE hypothesis does not automatically convict the bigger vehicle. It gives the truth a better chance. This is Kausik Gangopadhyay for Upword.